So finally, the Indian DPDP Act rules have been well defined, launched on 13th of November 2025, with timelines defined to be adherent to and compliant with the Act. Welcome to my YouTube channel where you regularly see new content on data privacy. In this playlist, we are going to talk about these rules, starting with what has changed when it has come up from the DPDP rules. So, what is this that we are talking of that got launched on 13th of November? The Government of India, the Ministry of Information and Technology, has finally published the rules to be covered under the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2025. Apart from publishing the final rules, they have also given three notifications. One is the enforcement timeline of these rules, second is the establishment of Data Protection Board of India, and third is the constituents of the board who will form the Board of India, Data Protection Board of India. When would the rules be effective? The rules would be effective under three slabs: immediate ones, 1 year, and 18 months. Immediately, the government itself has targeted for its own role. It will form the Data Protection Board. It will form the basic functioning framework, the definitions around which it is going to work, what are the powers that are going to be there with the board and the government, and what would be the overall adjudication network or framework that the government would follow. In the next 1 year, it would start with a grace period for consent withdrawal, and it would also define how would the board handle the grievances and complaints. Get into finer details. There are definitions already, but get into the finer exact details. But in 18 months, the big picture, it is expected that we are going to be ready or compliant with all the rules associated in this act: the rules of notice and consent, the rules for the children and physically disabled people, their verification, the security controls, the rules around data deletion, data retention, which data is to be retained for which period of time, how good or how safe would the deletion be, what would you do when there is a breach, whom to inform, when to inform, with what information, the rights of individual data principals, the duties of data fiduciary, and the rules around consent manager. Remember, we have been talking about many applications and many sources of personal information, so a lot of you can say sync up to happen between various areas of asking for consents. Apart from that, a lot more detail on cross-border data transfer rules, something that was not very well defined in the previous sets. So, what's new in the DPDP rules? Rule number 3 is talking about the notice requirements. We are going to get into details, and we are going to get into details of each of the rules in coming few days. Rule 6 defines the detailed security measures of the data. Rule 7 defines the data breach notification. How would the board be informed? In how much time within the breach? How much time would you take to inform the individuals, the data principals, and with what information? Rule number 8 talks about the mandatory retention and mandatory deletion periods and notices. Rule number 10 to 12 talks about rules for children's privacy and for privacy of people with disabilities. So, new verifiable consent for children, rule number 10 and 11. It would talk about the mandatory age verification, the verified parental control, the digital locker based identity validation. These are going to be important factors. Mandatory rule number 8, 1 year of log retention. For any processing that you do, the log should be available for 1 year. Applies to fiduciaries, applies to processors. Whosoever is processing, fiduciary should have a copy of logs. For example, you are purchasing ebooks or selling ebooks, the log about the sales purchase should be available for at least 1 year. You are taking cloud backups, the log of each of the backups should be available for 1 year. New security controls, rule number 6. This includes encryption, de-identification and tokenization, access controls, logging of information, and logging of the people into the system, the authorized people into the system, the backup and recovery processes. So these are all the security controls that should be included in the formation of policies for the government, and contractual obligations for the processors, the people who are processing information on behalf of a petition. The breach notification to board, we have added up the when would you notify affected individuals, what would the board like, and how would you notify the board. You need to provide information like nature of breach, the extent of breach, and the impact of breach that has happened. What are the mitigation measures you have taken to ensure that breach does not get repeated? The consent framework that includes registration criteria of the consent managers with the Data Protection Board of India, the duties of these consent managers, and if they are not following their duties, when and under what circumstances can the board suspend and cancel their registration. So the big picture says you should get ready in 18 months, be compliant, get everything well implemented. There would be impact on various sectors of business, especially things like health and fintech and edtech and SaaS providers, because if your data is on cloud, then that needs to be very, very safe. Businesses must start their compliance process now and not wait for 18 months to start the process. Next in this series, we are going to have a rule by rule breakdown of each of these rules and discuss them with you. So stay tuned, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share your feedback in the comment section. Thank you.